Ocean view. The billowing bow of a willow tree, the gentle frothing of a darkening sea, dewdrops on the grass I touch as I carefully tie up another notch. Darkness is warmer than you think when you're moving from edge to brink. Looking out at the water's deep, I spell out the secrets that for me you keep. One day I'll stand on this cliff top high, stones in my pockets, a smile and last sigh. But tonight, maybe, I'll just look at you and decide that moment is not yet true.
You are listening to the voices of the... Wait. Did you take the wrong turn? This is AmeLynn's Corner of Chaos. Are you sure you're prepared? Either way, welcome.
In tonight's episode, we are talking about dark things. So a little disclaimer here. If you feel a little bit uneasy about it, I can tell you that we start talking about death and maybe a few ways of dying as well, some dark times, and then things get a little bit lighter. So we are talking about Battle of Fates, East Asian traditions and animism, and then obviously there's a rabbit hole into vibration and frequency. We also talk about Snorre and oral traditions, and then we end up with music, J-Rock, and Visual Kei. Enjoy!
Hello, and welcome to AmeLynn's Corner of Chaos with
Amelie
and Lynn. So tonight's reading was a poem called Ocean View. And I wrote this last year. Yeah, jolly as usual, right?
I was just wondering when is that moment, but that's not really something to say, really. Maybe that moment will never come.
Maybe it will never
you'll
come.
become a mermaid. You just don't know.
Oh, that's right. Maybe. Yeah, but I mean, you're right. That's what I was wondering too. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're starting off with a dark thing, but I don't know. Like, this is kind of like a recurring theme for me. Like, if people were to read like all of the stuff that I write, the drowning theme for some reason, and I have not completely explored it, but maybe we could talk about that. I don't know. Do you have any particular trigger warning, death? So do you have any particular ways of dying that fascinate you? Like, not necessarily in the way that this is how I want to die, but like anything that, yeah, that it has some fascination for you, or that you have some sort of pull to or understanding, or something that scares you, maybe, on the other hand. Is there anything like that?
I guess it's easier to think about something that I would find scary, like a way I would find scary to die. And that's definitely being buried alive, because I'm extremely claustrophobic, and because of my reoccurring dreams as a kid, I think that would be like the worst. That would be like the worst. But at the same time, I find it slightly fascinating, because in a way, there is a chance that you could get out of it alive as well if you know what you're doing. But I don't know, that is a way I would not want to go. You know, like how people, it's like a twofer. There are these people that explore caves, and they go into very narrow caves, and they kind of slide around, and then there's also the fact the kind of like moisture and the water there. Those two together, just that would be. I don't understand how people do this. That is just a no. No, that is a no. No.
Spelunking, basically. Actually, oh god, I have a fun story about that word, because let's do that first, because before my ADD brain forgets it, and let's get back into fears of death after. But so spelunking, right? It's a legitimate word. And I remember I was at a concert once. It was a Robert Plant concert in Norway, and there were a couple of Americans in front of me. You know, Americans being loud but also, over friendly. They started talking with people around them, and then they started talking to me, and I was like, okay. So I talked to them, and I don't know how, but somehow, because they've been living in Norway for a while, but they don't think they speak Norwegian. I don't think they did speak Norwegian. They were like, It's just English. But then I was, we're talking about caves. Oh yeah, because the lady, she was very short. So she was like, at a concert, it's like, obviously it's like not that great when you're very short. So she was saying like, oh yeah, I'm so short and there's just detriments to it. Or she probably didn't use that word, I don't know. But she's like, yeah, it's not good being short. And then I tried to be like positive and I was like, oh yeah, but at least, it's easier for you to reach things that are lower. Or, if you're out spelunking, you don't hit your head. And then she was all like, oh, such a funny Norwegian word. It must be spelunking. Such a weird, funny Norwegian word. And I was like standing there, I was like, lady, I think, like I wasn't saying it, but I was like, this is an English word. I'm pretty sure. Like, this is English. But she was so convincing in her not knowing the word that I doubted myself. I was like, I have to look it up. And then looked it up. It's like, no, it exists. But she clearly didn't know it. So I was like, ha. Such a strange Norwegian word. In American accent, I can do it. Sorry. But, such a strange Norwegian word.
Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah. Spelunking. I like it.
There's a lot of like words that people don't use very often that pop up here and there. I find Luigi has that as well, that he likes to use certain words that you normally don't hear very often, and I really like that. Yeah. But I find that as
charming.
well.
Like,
I don't know if it's because he also speaks Italian, because a long time ago I had few French friends, and I find that French people as well tend to use certain like terms or certain words that you would not necessarily use in an like everyday language, which I find really interesting. It's correct word, but it's a very old word. So I wonder, it's maybe like the way they've been taught English, or it's just curiosity. I think with Luigi is also just curiosity, because like they're really cool words, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you read. And then like with Luigi, I mean, being so interested in like the mystic stuff, then I guess a lot of literature would be that he's reading and now just, guessing. But with a lot of literature, there would be strange mystical words, and then you just latch onto them. It's like, oh, this is a good word. Or like in the last episode we were recording, no, not the last, one of the next episodes that will be uploaded about animals, spoiler, Adriana uses the word psychopomp, and she has not seen the word or heard the word before. So now it's part of her vocabulary, and she really likes it. She says it several times in the episode. But, it's also a very particular word that you would normally use. I mean, it's also very specific, right? But she's like, psychopomp.
Maybe this is something we should ask him about next time.
The words, yeah.
Yeah, where is he getting all it from? Is it books, or is it just a random dictionary thing? Because
word of the day.
When I was yeah, exactly. When I was really, really young, I was in Sweden though. I really liked reading dictionaries, and I used to read like random strange words that people didn't really use often. So maybe he's also doing that.
Maybe. I used to do that too.
Have we derailed from the dark?
Yes.
Have we
can
just like
rail back onto it? Just
made up something nice to talk about, just to
spelunking. Yeah. I mean, spoiler also, I just wrote a story that's about caves and all that. That maybe it gets published. I will let you know if it does, so you can all read it. But that made me think of it. And when he said, like, you don't want to die in caves because there's stuff happening in that cave too in the story. That's not so nice, I guess. So, yeah. I'm just revising that story. I'm like in the process of that. But yeah, no, to me, I don't know. I mean, I've had very dark phases in my life, and I've had a really, really dark, bad phase in my life where I was like half suicide. Oh my God, I shouldn't laugh. I'm laughing because of the camera. The doing weird stuff. Because, I mean, I had a phase where I was suicidal, and I mean, bless, I'm out of that. I'm having a really great life now, and I feel good and I feel happy, and it's great. But for a long time in my life, I was not, and I was entertaining thoughts, right? Again, trigger warning. But I remember back then, I was fascinated with different ways. Like, I always had this attraction to what I call the Ophelia theme, like this drowning, whether it's because you choose or because you don't, but just this drowning in water. I've not explored it yet entirely, but I do feel there's like some karmic stuff there because it's been a thing since I was a child. Like I remember that when we were at the waters or like at the lakes or something, like my mom would just, her thing is like just sunbathing, tanning herself, and I would just like be in the water for like ever. And I was not a big swimmer, but I would dive. Like I would always like dive under, and I wanted to stay underwater for as long as I could. And I did these games with myself where I just like let myself sink down to the ground. I just took a breath and then I just sunk down like a stone, and then I just tried to be still on the floor, on the bottom of the lake for as long as I could. And then obviously I had to get back up at some point. But there's always been this fascination of just being underwater like that. Yeah, the Ophelia stuff. So that's been always a thing. Also, like in the bathtub, I like to be it's like things I like to
Yeah.
be underwater. And my mom is the complete opposite. Like she's always been scared of having her head like underwater. So she can do that. She swims, but she panics when her head gets pushed underwater. And it might be like some childhood trauma that somebody pushed her under, but maybe that's also karmic. But clearly I don't have a fear for it. I don't have this, it's scary. Like I find it extremely fascinating. Although people
Do
say
you
it's
find
very agonizing.
do you find it a little bit calming while you were kind of like thinking?
Yeah. I mean, there's this theory that you're supposed to like being underwater because it reminds you of being in the womb as an embryo. So in our code, supposedly it is meant to be that you like it. You want to be submerged in water because that's how your life started. And then you come out with this traumatic cry when you have like all the air around you and stuff, and your lungs suddenly have to breathe air. So maybe it's just this reverting back into how you started life, maybe. And maybe that's normal, and just being scared of it is not so normal. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of how I feel about water. I'm not super scared of water. I know how to swim, but I never really liked diving. When you dive from high, I never really liked the whole thing of like falling and then into water. But it wasn't fear of being in the water. It was just fear of like just falling into. I don't think it was something within me. I think it was just like a logic thing. Like, what if the water is not deep enough? What if something is under there? It was just that.
Yeah.
So if I was diving, I normally dive from a bridge, but not from the tower. I didn't really like that. Just didn't really appeal to me.
Yeah.
I I don't
It's not the fall
find
that
it.
kills you.
Yeah.
It's not the fall that kills you, it's the landing.
Yeah, exactly. I can understand the fascination of jumping from heights as well. I can understand this.
Yeah, you're flying like for a few, but this is also something I never got into. Like as a child, I was also scared of the jumping down into water because I had like experiences with that. I landed hard just from like 1 meter, like nothing basically, but landing hard, and it's so painful. And I didn't know
Yeah.
how to jump in a way that it would be smooth, so I never liked that. I found it scary.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. I think for me, maybe I don't know why it would be, but I'm thinking like if I would just want to end it all, I think I would do something dramatic, as in like bleed to death or something. I find that I'm not saying that anyone should do it,
No,
disclaimer, but
do not.
in my mind, I'm thinking like if anything, that would be something. Like I would set things up in a way so when they find me, it will
It
tell a
would be pretty.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want things
Yeah.
to tell a story. I either like wrote some diary or I had certain things around me that were not obvious, but because it would be like a murder thing, they have to go through it and like figure out why and what and all of that. And I think that's something I would like to leave something behind that makes people double think of what happened. Maybe that's an ego thing, but I would find that that's something that would make me
Go out with a
feel,
bang.
yeah,
No
yes,
matter, yeah, yeah, but this is really so interesting because like when I was younger and I was in that phase of, being at the edge, like my ideal way of ending it was I wanted to also, because I have a fascination, and blood is fascinating, and also, I guess as
mm,
a witch and not, there's some power in that. But the bleeding out in the snow, just also preparing like a scene, but then just this images of like the white snow and blood romanticized in my mind, and thanks to some beautiful movies that have made scenes like that very beautiful. I think there's in Kill Bill 1 or 2 and Kill Bill anyway. There's like this scene where they fight in the snow, and then there's the snow and the blood, and it's very beautiful.
yeah,
To weirdos like me. So I was like, yes, and also like, of course there has to be like diary and stuff. Yeah. But it's probably never that pretty as you imagine. It's not a great thing to find somebody dead. But
yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Mm.
I think it would be just nice to know that you either whatever you wrote or whatever you leave behind is going to be something where you could be super honest without thinking about any kind of consequences to not just for what people think, but like anything that you've been keeping quiet because, I don't know, because you
Mm.
didn't want to ruffle feathers or anything. That I think that would be really nice to do. You should actually do it before, anything
Yeah.
happens. But,
Or just
there's certain
just,
things.
just get old enough, like beyond your 30s phase, when you stop caring so much about what people think, that will probably already help a lot.
I was kind of there for quite a
Mm-hmm.
while. And then there was a shift just before like this whole pandemic happened.
Mm.
And then during, and I always been very upfront and honest because I thought I was among friends that would,
Mm-hmm.
if they don't agree with me, I thought that would like, oh, I don't agree with that. That is just silly.
Mm.
Why would you say that?
Mm.
This is how, because that's how I am. I really don't mind when people I don't mind having differences with people as long as we don't kill each other, basically. But
Right.
it wasn't the case. It was the case of
Mm.
me being myself, saying what was on my mind. And I am very sarcastic as well. So sometimes I say things
Mm.
in a sarcastic way because
Mm.
it's funny. So many times I came home and got a message
Mm.
saying that, you've been out of line, why, we did not like what you
Mm.
said there. So
Mm.
it happened a few times and I'm just like, well, why didn't you tell me to my face if you didn't like it? I would have,
Yeah.
like, we don't have to go into it. It wasn't, to me, it was nothing crazy. It wasn't like I was saying that I hated like their mother or something. It was nothing like that. But I think when I got to be by myself, I found that, you know what, if this is how it's going to be, then I'd rather not be friends with people because I'm not going to like censor myself. But I
Mm.
feel like I am censoring myself now. And I think that's because of that happen. And now
Mm-hmm.
when I speak to people, I find it difficult to like be like completely honest or like completely
Mm.
upfront because I in my mind is like I don't want to scare them even if it's
Mm.
nothing really. uh it's weird,
Yeah,
so
no,
that
it's
would
not.
be great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not that easy. Yeah, I know. But I mean, I guess especially if you have people in your life that you care a lot about, that are sensitive to stuff, then it's like, then or then you're like, okay, I should probably censor myself because they cannot take it. Although it would
Yeah.
be much nicer if everybody were just chill about stuff and you could just be very honest, I think.
Yeah, I think also it's a lot about misunderstanding, specifically if you're a
Mm.
person where you
Mm.
think a lot and you overthink, and then you kind of
Mm.
in your own train of thought. And I find that I sometimes don't explain things
Mm.
properly because half of the explanation is in my head already. So when it comes out in words, half of the explanation might be not there because I already processed it so many times
Mm.
in my
Mm.
mind. And then people might not really understand what I mean. So I think many of these things are like misunderstandings as well, or people like don't really get what you're talking about. So
Mhm.
I try to kind of keep it simple and keep the weird stuff in my brain
Except for here, because here you can let them out.
Except for here, because, we are weirdos here and we love the rabbit holes, so
Yeah,
yeah.
we do. Speaking of weird and rabbit holes, there's this show I've started to watch. Just also watch it because it's fun. So everybody who's like interested in tarot or other kind of oracles, there's this show that came out on Disney that's called Battle of Fates, which is Korean, and it's kind of set up like a game show. They have so it starts. I've only seen like 1.5 episodes, I think, right now, but it's so intriguing. So they collected 49 participants of different traditions. Like some of them are like Korean shamans, traditional ones. Some of them are actually using tarot cards or oracle cards. Others are read astrology charts, stuff like that. And I mean, I saw that, right? And it's like, I don't know, this sounds weird as fuck. Like, how can you base a game show of oracles? But sign me up. I want in. Like, this is amazing. And obviously, only like some Southeast Asian would come up with that, or somewhere where there's the whole animism and the spirituality is so alive. Because, I mean, they have shamanism is very much alive there and much more trusted than in most European or colonized places,
Sadly.
So, yeah, sadly. So it's very much active. So I've watched the first episode and a bit more, and now I kind of understand how they're set it up. Because in the beginning, I was like, "How do you even what do you do? Like, how do you do this? Yeah, how do you decide who's better?" And I don't know. But
Yeah.
just the start, just the start of it is also so intriguing when they leave like all the candidates come in one by one, and then have like special focus on some. And so I don't know anything about the Korean VIP shamans, I don't know anything about it, but evidently there's a lot of people that are very known that are on this show. And they all have like their different outfits, and it's so impressive. Like all the shamans, there's quite a bunch of shamans, and they all come like with the big fans and then the bells, and some with drums, and some of them make a big entrance, and you sit there like, ooh, like you get goosebumps. It's really cool. And some other people are like more like modern, like this one girl, she just comes in with like in jeans, and like she's very like millennial or Gen Z, I think, and she's just having like a little. I think she's got I Ching coins or something in her hand that she's playing with, so everybody has their own thing. And some guys that just look like businessmen, full with a suit and a tie and coming with a little suitcase, and you're like, what are they? And then, oh yeah, they read astrology, or or there's this one guy who's like the company reader of luck, basically. So I'm not sure whether he has another job, like whether he also has a different job in the company besides that, but apparently like his thing is that he reads the astro stuff in the company, and that decides on whether you would, take on big risks or not, and so on. And the Korean astrology reading is different from ours. So I don't know anything about it more than what I've seen so far. But they're also taking the directions, like the winds and the directions with like north, east, southwest, and the center, and read with that. And then with metal and wood, and then apparently if you have a lot of metal in your chart, then so and so and so. So it's stuff that I don't know anything about. And what I also didn't know existed, because we have like palm readers in our traditions, right? Or like in the gypsy traditions, which we know of. But in Korea or
My
South
godmother
Korea,
was one.
Oh yeah! Wow! Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. You just if you probably know much more about it. I just know like what I've seen, but it's something that we know exists. But in Korea, they also have something that's called face reading, and it's basically it's the same or a similar system where like the entire face is also like converted into zones. And there was like shortly like shown a little map of like a face, and then I don't know, it was like 70 or 80 or like a lot of zones on the face, and you can read at the same way that you would read like palms. And there's also a foot reader, like these kind of things. And I'm like, this is so intriguing. Like I don't know anything about. And then this one girl came in, like one of these face readers was like already standing there. And then another woman comes in and she stands like close to him. And he just looks at her and he's like, oh, you've got some kidney issues. And she's got like, how did you know? And he's like, oh, I can see it on your face, stuff like that. And you're like, okay.
It's really
Yeah.
interesting with things like that because I know in China, for example, when it comes to health specifically, they have,
Mhm.
like Western hospitals, but then they also have like hospitals that do base themselves in like old traditions.
Mhm.
And they also have, I know like in Thailand as well, one of my good friend's mom, she moved to Sweden, but she's Thai, and she had like massage. It's very like
Mm.
quite, I mean, basic. She does massage, right? But
Mm.
she knows like all the pressure points and all of these things. I had no idea
Mhm.
before, but I started like touching my foot when I was in her because I was waiting for something. She was like, no, 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 don't press that point. Don't do it and then she
Mhm.
started explaining all of this to me, and I was
Mhm.
like, so I bet I mean, that is more of like a pressure point, but I'm very sure that when it comes to reading things like that,
Mm.
it would be
Mm.
something similar.
Yeah, possible. I know nothing about it, very little. I mean, also like the whole like Eastern medicine, there's also like things that, they just look at the inside of your mouth, and then according to the coloration and the texture and stuff, they can see what kind of illness you supposedly have. Um
And
it's
also,
interesting.
and also, there is also when they heal you with the bowls, they put you in
Mhm.
like a sound bowl because of the
Mhm.
vibrations
Mhm.
and and frequency in general. It
Mm.
has when it comes to like certain sounds where it
Mm.
can actually heal you from like if you have cancer, for example. And it seems like it's been proven on camera
Mm.
because they actually do whatever they do,
Mhm.
and there's a camera there and you can see it just
Mm.
dissolves, the illness. And this is what I personally think, that there's just so many things that we've forgotten from
Yeah.
from the past because we like ridicule these people like, oh, you just
Mm.
some kind of psychic or something. I guess
Mm.
there's a lot of people that are, very on the surface, but then there are like the real
Mm.
deals.
Mm.
And this is what's so fascinating. I think,
Mm.
yeah, just because the show is from Korea as well, like you said, because they have a completely different way of seeing things. It's really
Yeah, different
interesting.
approach. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
because I know that I think it was definitely a British show ages ago. They had
Mhm.
something similar, but it
Mhm.
was more like I think they invited psychics or mediums
Mm.
to show. They basically tested them in different
Mm.
ways
Mm.
to see if they were actually legit or not. And many of
Yeah.
them, they weren't.
Mm.
But that's very very westernized way of doing things,
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, it seems like the shaman group in that is like one of the more popular group, or the more trusted, maybe intuitively trusted by the others. So there's judges, right? There's like, I think 5 or 6 judges. They, I mean, we don't know how staged anything is ever, right? But apparently they don't know that much either. And they're like normal people. And one of them is a big skeptic. So she said like she doesn't believe in anything like fate reading, oracles, blah blah blah. While the others, I think, are a bit more open, or just like traditional kind of. So they judge each round. But with the shaman group, there were a lot of like VIPs, like well-known shamans, and some of them are like the people that apparently are like not private shamans, but that are like shamans for certain stars, like certain stars, or even politicians or big sports people would go to a particular shaman that is like their trusted shaman, and they would read for them. And there were also other particular ones when they came in, and then people were like talking. It's like, oh yeah, isn't she the one who predicted the big so and so and so and so when she was just like 11 years old or something? And they're like, oh yeah, that's her. So and they have something they have uh, different, let's say, genres of shamans. That's not the right word, but different types Okay, so two things I found super interesting, on top of the things that I already find interesting, everything. But two things is that they also have this very strong spirit belief, right? But in a way that when people come in and they watch them, like the other people are already there, and then in comes this very effeminate male, and he's also shaman, but he's very like effeminate, and we would like code him as, oh, he's probably gay or queer or something, right? And then they were like, he seems to have female spirit with him, like that kind of talking. Or then in come some women, and there's this one girl or woman, and she's like all, she's like basically jumping around and prancing, and they're all like, oh, and good luck to you, like that. And she's like, she has a child spirit with her. Yeah, she has a very young child spirit. So this idea that these shamans have like particular entities or beings or people attached to them in a way that have a particular, like, say, gender and their gender acting through them, and that reminded me of that in some Native American beliefs. You also have like these, like these, what are they called? Like the twin spirit, not twin spirits. You know what they're called? Like when they, in some traditions, it's if you present as neither man or woman, you are, I think, double spirited or something. I forgot the term now, but then you're particularly sacred and you would do shaman work very often. Instead of, contra with our very, it's better now, but with our very Western thing as, the very binary coded, and you're either a girl or a boy. Obviously now being queer and being non-binary is much more, accepted. But there are actually traditions where this is, rather than accepted, being celebrated, and you are special kind of thing. And then also seeing it in South Korea, in the spiritual world, it seems like, okay, that they're just like, oh yeah, this looks like a man, but there's a female spirit attached to it, like with him. And that's why that person presents as very feminine, for example, without this judgment cloud that we still have here to some degree. So that was, I think, super fascinating. And then there was this thing about the different types of shamans in a way, because there are these I think they call themselves like fairies. And this is a translation from their term, obviously, like from the Korean term. I don't know the Korean term. The translation is fairy. Not what we call fairies here for people either. But these dress differently. And they, I think, as I've gathered now, they seem to be people, so far usually women, who have been a shaman since they were very, very young. So say 3 or 4 years old. Like there were some that basically were born and then something happened and then they started reading other people's fates. So that is just like, I'm like, a lot that you can say about that, but I find it very fascinating. It's so different.
If in countries like Korea, for example, and I guess China and Japan as well, because they had this with them for so long, and they haven't, there's this balance between the old ways and the new ways. There's room for both of them. I feel people have a little bit more, they can see, like, if someone that is very young acts in a certain way or does something, I'm sure that they see it as a gift more than we would hear. We would just be like, oh my God, my child is autistic or something. I don't know. But there's always like, here it doesn't translate the same way because we have lost the old ways a little bit. It feels
But then also, just to hook into that with having autism and stuff, the old ways, at least in the UK or in Scotland, the tradition was like, if you have a child that was autistic, that's where the tradition of or the idea of the changeling came from. Both that if your child's a little bit different, this idea of, okay, it's been taken by the fairies and you now have a different child. I just saw a thing about it a few days ago.
They're just away with fairies.
Yeah, they just basically blamed it on fairies if your child was other or if the mother had postpartum depression. So they were just like, oh yeah, it's the fairies doing it. And it's not actually a real child. And this is more like a more harmful tradition in that sense, because then you make your child other. And yeah, but different traditions. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure that even like in Korea, I mean, there or like in Southeast Asia, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who think all of this is bullshit, especially like people living in the cities. But it's just overall, I feel it's still alive and it's more accepted than, okay, this is a thing. Although you don't have to necessarily believe in it, but they're just like, yeah, it's a thing, and some people believe in it. You know, I mean, there's a lot of Christians now there as well, right? And some of
Yeah.
them might mingle, just like in Japan, it's very common that no matter what kind of religion you officially belong to, you still you do Christmas, and then you still go to the shrine, and you still do your Buddhist stuff. Like they just take whatever works.
Yeah, I was about to
So
say, I
yeah.
have not been to Korea, but I have been to Japan. So I just found there the old traditions are very much alive, and
Mm,
there is no judgment either. Maybe when people are very, very young, they're a bit like, yeah, it's only my granny that does this and that. But
mm.
there is a respect for it. I find it's not really the same here in a way.
No, I don't.
I think
Yeah,
it is
I
much
agree.
better now. I do find that we have getting back to a lot of pagan roots and a lot of like
Mm,
old traditions, and it's almost like we're trying to find the things that we lost,
mm,
because I do feel like we have lost it. Maybe we had it just a little bit too good, so we got a little
mm,
bit detached from being like a spiritual. I don't know what it could be, but I just find like in Japan it was, yeah, people never really lost it. It's always been there
mm,
side by side with
mm,
new religions, I guess, and
mm.
that's kind of the way it should be, really.
Yeah, it's just so different, like culturally. Some cultures are more prone to, if they get a new thing that they have to absorb, for example, that they completely get rid of the other stuff that they had, and some that are more just, having no problem in going like side by side or taking the best of everything.
It depends who takes over, really, because when Christianity came, they were like, "Oh no, this is the new religion now, so we're going to just burn everyone that does not agree with what we do." And in this
You get a
case,
little
people,
cautious when that's the thing, It's like, if you pray to your gods, we're gonna
exactly.
kill you. It's like, okay.
Yes. If you heal my wounds with some herbs, then you're a witch. We kill you.
And we will.
So yes, exactly. I think, I mean, I don't know. It's just my speculations, obviously. I think during that time, we've lost so much,
Mm, mm,
because we lost the people that were actually in tune with nature, in tune with spirit. Everything that they did, magic or knowledge, or both
mm,
of them intertwined,
mm.
was within harmony with nature, something that we definitely lost. And we just lost them because they were either killed or there's not many people that have survived, I think. So
Mm.
everything is also like a story to story mouth. There's no
Mouse to
really
mouth, yeah.
books or scriptures
Mm,
or anything. I mean,
mm,
there is few things, but it's sometimes, you wonder, you have maybe the scriptures on stones and things of people that were famous or rich or
mm.
powerful, whatever, but then the normal people, so to say, the people that just didn't bother
No,
writing things down,
it's
they just
yeah, it's
had
also
things.
so yeah, also so difficult, like in our tradition, that it always like oral tradition, like everything for millennia, it was oral tradition. And then in Europe, the writing came with Christianity, and the
Yeah.
monks were the ones who were writing. So the only people who were able to even just put things into writing in the start were people who were already, for lack of better word, tainted by Christianity, and things that we would read, or nowadays we'd have to kind of, we don't know how authentic that is that they've been, right? Like that they wrote down. And then, of course, people, got educated, more people got educated, but it's mostly the other, like the new religion, the Christian religion, for example, that came, that had the means to get educated in writing and all that. So while some of the old traditions remained until maybe to a point where it was more common that people could read and write, and then they could write it down. And then I think, I don't know how it was historically, chronologically, when the witch hunt started, and there was probably just then at the overlap, and a lot of things probably got just burned along, like the bad scriptures, the witch stuff, So
Yeah,
it's really difficult.
I
Like, for
think so
example, also
too.
with the official knowledge we have left for runes, for example, there's very few sources. Like, for example, also like the myths that are delivered by like the Norse or the Germanic myths, that was Snorri Sturluson who has written them down in the Edda, and he was Christian. We all know that.
Yeah.
And he seems to be a person who wanted to be authentic, or as authentic as possible. Like, I guess some of the Grimm tales, they wanted to be authentic, but they also changed stuff. So it's like me. They also changed stuff depending on what was needed, So we
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, the whole Ragnarok theme, like with there being like an end of a world and all that. And this seems very Christian tainted, for example. It does not seem something that is very animist. And so, there's, it's not easy, and there's nobody left from that time period who can tell, or I don't know.
When I was a long time ago, I read the Eddas, but I kept that in mind that it's written by someone. And this is the thing, it's not necessarily his fault, it's just he wanted to. In his mind, he did it as authentic as possible. But
Yeah,
I
I believe
think many
that.
times you just don't understand how indoctrinated, is that the word? You
Yeah.
are, because you want to be authentic, but at the same time, going from I guess a belief or a culture, a spirit of so close to nature to something that is actually quite divorced from nature, which I find Christianity is. It really is like a completely different, so even if he wanted to be as authentic as possible, I really like, this is how I normally think, this person was not in tune with nature. So there are certain things in my mind, I take it with a pinch of salt. And I also just, when they're talking about these gods and things that happen, it also feels very like Christianized. So I don't know, even though he wanted to be authentic, I'm still thinking, is this a way of persuading the rest of people to, in a way, making it a little bit Christian, so it's tuned into their way of thinking? Because I don't know how people, when people read it in the beginning, did they actually think that he was completely legitly authentic and then whatever he wrote was true? Or did they actually think that maybe he doesn't know everything? Because, I mean, for a long time, and I'm sure that a lot of people still do it, when they're reading a book by a writer that they really like or they believe in them, they read a book like to the T, like this is the truth. And a lot of people they just don't question, even, or specifically if it's a writer that they might like, you just don't really question because you kind of like on their side. So it is a very tricky
Because I mean,
matter,
it
I
depends a
guess.
lot on who's reading, and again, who has access to these things. So I don't remember. I don't know, but I feel back then most people who again would be reading stuff would also be academics, or again, people of religion or academics. So they would probably take it apart rather than being like, "Oh, I trust this completely," and it would probably be more discussed through that kind of lens of, okay, this guy traveled through Iceland, or and collects the stories of these weird people that believe in weird things. It's so very interesting how traditions change just through the whole how they're being told, what is changed while it's being told when it's written down. It's so, you can see that again, my nerdified folk tales, you can see it so well in folk tales. There are also just oral traditions, and there's like some folk tales that are overlap in many countries in Europe, Asia, and then when people start to write them down, they chose the version that they liked best, or the version that worked in their society to tell the tale that they needed to tell. So some stories weren't welcome in certain societies, so they would not be told. For example, not to go too much into that maybe, but like the story of the beanstalk. What's it called? It was like, boom, half of my brain
Jack and the
functions
Beanstalk.
Jack and the Beanstalk, yes. That's what we know it as. That is apparently a super, super old story that is like thousands of years old. And it is always very popular with the people, with the small folk, when there's a giant, quote unquote, to be felled, like somebody who's, big and powerful and does harm to the people. The story, in very short, it tells of a person, and not the story now with Jack. Now he's like a good boy and stuff, and he's taking stuff from the giant because the giant stole it. But in the original, it wasn't like that. In the original, it was just he had an opportunity to fell a giant, so a very, very powerful person, basically. It's like giants are not gods, they're just very powerful and very large. They can be killed, is basically the story. It just needs one person who is brave enough, maybe stupid enough, brave enough to be like, I'm gonna kill this giant because I want his golden goose and I want his magical harp, and I'm just gonna take it because I can. That is the gist of the actual story. There's nothing of revenge that came later, really. We're just, I'm just gonna get it because I can. And this story obviously is very popular amongst the lower folk when there's like, when the people in power are doing things that, are really pressing down with their, then it just needs one person. But then the people in power, they don't like the story, obviously. So one of these first times the story was recorded, when it was written down, it was also only people that were like in the streets that remembered the story. Because, nobody else would tell it. Obviously, the people who are in power would never tell the story because, it threatens them. And it's just the people in the gutter who knew it. So it's like very, yeah. And then it comes back, the story, and it goes back down, But it's like, guys, if you want to change something, it just takes one person. Or very few, but you have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slight
Yeah.
tangent on Jack and the Beanstalk and oral traditions.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said giants. I'm thinking like, yeah, but maybe back in the day, real proper big giants actually existed. And in my brain, I'm
maybe
like,
that as
yes.
well.
I'm just like, I actually think so, but it sounds crazy, but it would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, either way, if it's an actual literal giant or if it's just people who are in power, the thing is the same, that if you're very tall, rarely, or very powerful, you rarely look at what's going on right at your feet because you're so much in your own stuff. So you don't really see that little man scurrying around and plotting your downfall.
Yeah. Here comes the villain.
Here comes the villain or the vigilante. Yeah.
I know there was something I was thinking about, but my brain just like, it just came out.
Grab on from something you said earlier that you mentioned with the sound healing and and all that. So I just had some thoughts about that the other day as well, because I'm somebody who's like extremely attuned to sound or music. I'm not a musician myself, but passively I react, or I have a very strong input, maybe. Which is also interesting when we talked about the zodiac in one of our episodes, and or we talked privately, I don't remember, but I'm a fire hare in the Chinese tradition. And something that I think Adriana said that I wasn't aware of, because it's been a while that I've read anything about my Chinese horoscope. But especially the fire hares said something about how they are in tune with the music of the universe or something. And I was just like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because I have a very, very intense way of reacting to and working with music. So there's some genres that I can absolutely not, I cannot stand. I can tolerate a lot, but there's only specific things that really get that really go or it feels like the music and the sound basically fills the cavities of my brain. Like the way that I would describe it, or the way I described it last when I was thinking about it, it's really like, you're made of so many atoms, but the atoms are mostly just empty space, and plus that we're also mostly made up of water. And you can see and measure what happens with sound waves both in water, or do you know that there's something that it changes something with the vibrations. And just on this very atomic level, it makes so much sense that music would do something, whether it is actual healing because it changes some of the pattern or something in you, but also the way that you experience it, or whatever you do with it. Like I do a lot of my magic gets triggered, or I can trigger it with music. So I pull energy out of the sounds and music, and like a lot of my practice is with that. So that's, yeah, I think sound is very powerful more than we
I think
sometimes
sound
think.
is no, I think sound is definitely very powerful. Otherwise, we would not have all the celebrities and music and all of that being,
Mm,
guided by, I don't know, people.
mm,
Music used to be my thing for since I was very, very young. I always, always loved music, very specific music as well, but I always did as well. I don't know what happened a few years ago, quite a few years ago now. I kind of stopped listening to a lot of music.
mm,
And many times when I hear music nowadays, it really just annoys me and agitates me. Like new
mm,
music, I hate most of new music. I really do.
mm, mm,
I am the kind of person now, I keep listening to the music that I like, which
mm,
is like really old music sometimes, or
mhm,
certain frequencies
mhm,
that I listen to, but I find it very difficult to find new music that I really
mm,
enjoy. And I
mhm,
used to
mhm,
dance before, and I
mm,
find that I think dancing also is very triggering when it comes to magic and like vibrations and
mhm,
the emotions, the movements to it.
mhm,
I still find that very powerful, but I just don't know why I just stopped listening to music as much as I used to,
mm,
and it worries me sometimes. I don't know why this
mm,
happened. I am forever wanting to find new music that I'm just like, oh my God, I haven't heard this before. Like, I love this.
mhm.
Where, like, you know, that I want to find that, but I just haven't yet. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's strange.
you have to expose yourself and be curious to find it. I mean, I'm like very lucky that I have some artists that I know that will just whatever they release, it's just gonna hit it. It's just gonna work. And then also some old artists that I keep listening to that work. So I have like there's music that I just know will work. But I'm like the same. Like a lot of the modern or like the new stuff, it's just like noise, not necessarily like bad noise, but it's just like it doesn't trigger. It's very superficial, a
Yeah.
lot of it. And I have friends or a particular friend, and she doesn't get any big emotions from music like I do. Like she doesn't get that at all. And her entire music taste in music seems it's just music that makes her feel good. Like that is like very pop, and just very positive sounds. But to me, that is a lot of that music is not just boring, but it's rather jarring. And like the way that I experience it, I would not be able to listen to it for very long because it would drive me mad. It's like superficial scratching on my brain with, rusty nails.
Yeah.
Although it's not sounding bad, but it's just the way that it's like eating junk food, basically. It's like as if you were eating junk food every day, all day for the soul. And I cannot do this. Like I'm like my soul and my spirit is like rebelling. It's like I cannot expose myself to that music for so long because it just feels so damaging to my system in the long run. And I need to like actually cleanse it out of my system. It feels or it sounds really intense and
But
strange
music is
and weird.
intense. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think music is
Yeah.
intense like that because it's not just like the sound is the vibration, it's just the
Mm,
tone, and there's just so much that goes into it
mm,
as well, depending on like who makes it as well, what was their
mm,
intention.
mm.
It gets to you on a very deep
Yeah.
level.
there's so much. Some people are like magicians when it comes to making music, I swear. Like there's just both the way that they create the music, and some people are then good also with the actual lyrics, and then if the voice also fits and everything just creates this whole thing, and you're like, did these people know, or are they just intuitively, they're probably just intuitively just feeling it and they're just vibing with it, and then they do that, and then it's just like, boom. Yeah, it's amazing. Music is great.
No, it's true. I have a friend. She's a singer-songwriter, and it's not just because she's my friend. Her voice is just so delicate and so strong at the same time. And she's been doing a lot of like collaborations with like other like DJs and other people, which is really cool because this her voice together with like a house, like some house beats or just like a bit witchy housey thing, and her voice is just so amazing. It's maybe like I'm not trying to like, just because she's my friend, is really not like that at all, but I always said
Promote
that to
her.
her, like
Put her in
her
the
name
comments.
is
Put her in
Barney.
the.
Her name is
Put her
Barney,
below.
and she's great. I'm just so amazed that, you know, she hasn't had more exposure than she has. And she has had, you know, there's so many, you know, songs that she's done. And there's the genres that are a little bit different as well, because she's been working with like different producers and stuff, which is really cool. But there's just something like genuine in her voice, and you can really feel the emotion when she's singing it. It's just not just, see, there are people that have very good voices and they just trying to like Mariah Carey, they trying to like hit the notes, and it's just, you know, they like technically talented. She's technically talented, but also like it comes from the soul. I guess it's also because most of the time she sings her own lyrics as well. So you have a different kind of, it's kind of like you reading poetry. But yeah, I'll
When I read them in my
make
mind
sure I
quietly,
link.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but
Then it sounds
she's amazing.
yeah.
Like, I think I never like her voice is a voice that she always, when there's a new song or something, that always hits me. Like always like, it's very emotional. So
Yeah.
like I like that. And when I was younger, I liked lyrics, but then I listened to a lot of music with no lyrics because I found it really annoying being dictated what the song is about. Like, why are you telling me what the song is about? I want to listen to the music and make up
The
my own
rebel.
mind.
Is
Yeah,
this
it's
how you
very
got into
random.
J-Rock and Visual Kei, and you didn't understand the lyrics at first? Japanese music.
Maybe I really don't remember how I got into this.
Yeah.
I
Because I
can't.
feel that's, oh my God. Okay, attention. This could probably be a complete episode in itself. I don't know. But that's for me, because we share that. We found out like by accident that we both have a
Yeah.
history with Visual Kei and J-Rock bands. For me, I think it was in like 2009, 8, 7, something. I think it started with a 6, something there. I think it started for me. The fascination that was for me in the beginning is because I did not at that point know any Japanese, and the music hit on a level that no Western music has ever before that ever managed. It was everything. It was the orchestra. It is the sounds hitting. And even really good music. Like, I mean, I have a big Led Zeppelin thing, you know, like, you know, so very, you know, old bands that really put a lot into their actually sounds, you know. So nothing came close to the way that they operate with how they create the sounds. It made me feel things that I wasn't and just never felt before with music. And the interesting thing is that because then I got into Japanese, and I started to actually understand the lyrics. And the lyrics usually did not fail me either. Like, because they're so, like, the language can be so beautiful and so poetic that it just all comes together. And then obviously some of the bands who have really beautiful vocals, you know, as well, or good one, or, you know, great ones, whatever. But it's like, it comes together and it creates this whole symphony of, I don't know, it was great. Like for me, that was one of the things that pulled me into that whole thing, because it made me feel stuff that I had not felt ever before with music. That was also before before I was in touch with shamanism, and actually before my whole journey into that stuff. I was always interested in that, but the music came first, I think, and that stuff. And then I understood stuff about it later, I suppose. But yeah, that was a big thing. And I think a lot of people share that. Experimenting. My mother also really started liking the music. And she definitely doesn't understand Japanese. She can pick out a few words here and there nowadays, right? But for her, it was very similar. She's also been quite susceptible to music. I think I got that from her. But she was also like, goosebumps everywhere, and she doesn't understand a single word, but it's just completely, she's just like, what? She's just crying without knowing why. And then the same thing. And then she got my now stepfather into some of the music as well. And he definitely doesn't understand Japanese. And he's not a person that I know to be very into music, but there was a very particular song. I remember he listened to it the first time, and I think he almost had like a shamanic journey listening to it, because he actually saw pictures of scenes that were happening, and he could see, and he does not understand the lyrics, but he saw like somebody like on a hospital bed dying and stuff. And that is what's happening in the lyrics, So I was like,
Wow.
magic.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I'm still trying to think of like where did it start for me? Normally, I don't remember things like that. I like I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I like things in a very specific way, and I find that Japanese people in general, Japanese people that have a talent, it's not like just about a talent. They take talent to a completely different level. If you are a singer, or even, I know that bass players normally are the ones that don't get a lot of, but they don't care. If they're a bass player, they're like, want to be the best player, the bass player that they can be. If you are, a guitar player, you do your best. And when you're on stage, you give your best. When you sing, you give your best. And you can really tell.
Can tell.
It's the soul that has been put in. And no matter what it is, even if it's, like a Japanese punk band that's supposed to be sloppy, they sloppy with the intention. And like, if I'm going to be sloppy, I'm going to be like the best sloppy I can be. Yes. Which I love that. They just give it the all to that.
Yeah,
well,
the
you
genuinity
also had
combined with the talent and everything. And but just the soul aspect is, again, we are in a culture that is very animist as a base. It's very soul, not our concept of soul, not the Christian concept of soul. That something has spirit, right? A be-spirited way, basically, of things, or animated, like, animist. So that is everywhere. And in cultures like that, it hits so different. They are completely submerged in this, if that makes sense, but like submerged in this whole like spirit and soul. And if you're doing something, you do it with your all. Because what is the point of doing something less than that, especially if it's something that you care for? Of course, if you don't care for something, you won't be able to do that, right? And you're just forced by your boss that you have to, and by society and the standards. But if you're doing something that you really care for, you will put your all into it. And you do it. You go on stage, even if you're sick. You go on stage with a broken bone. You go on stage even if you fall over, because it's that thing. And you can feel that. And you can feel that they really mean it with, it's just, there's still music that is also superficial. It still exists, but with the music that
absolutely,
it still exists, but with the music that I was in contact with, or that bombarded me, basically, all of it felt like there's no superficiality in this music whatsoever. When they weren't so good in the beginning of their starter years and they were experiencing, like some of the bands, you can hear definite difference, that it just weren't so good yet technically, but there was like the burn for something, and then as they got better and older, it's just a cacophony of, it's just crazy. Yeah. So it's a thing.
Yeah, I liked some like very underground Japanese bands, few of them back in the day, and I know some of my friends, they're like, why does this appeal to you? We just cannot hear it. But there's always something either within the voice or within the person. And what I really like as well is that they have these characters. It's not like nowadays. It feels like I'm Britney Spears and it's very personal. Like, oh, this is me. Britney Spears on stage, privately, blah, 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 blah. But I find, obviously not all of them, I do find that most of like Japanese, like the J-Rock bands specifically, they have a character, they're in character, and then you don't really know much about their private life. It's very like, and people are very fine with that. They're in love with the character and they're giving them the fans the character and what they love, and the fact that they are able to have a private life, without
Yeah,
that's what I said. I know it's not happening a lot, but
it's different. Yeah, it's definitely different.
It's very different like this. Yeah, you said that you kind of got into the shamanism was a big part of you getting into Japanese music. I find that really interesting.
It was the other way around. Yeah. The music came first, shamanism came later, but I kind of, but
got it from that. See, because of our thing that we haven't really explained to our listeners now, I think it's very interesting. I'm going to say it now because you understand, and maybe we'll talk about it. I know we will talk about it at some point. For me, I always had a fascination with vampires. And I think that really tied me into Japanese music as well. Because
Versailles
one of my
D.
Yeah,
Who was your favorite?
has been my D has been always like my number one. Sagi, I do like Ruzai as well because his guitar play is just so on point.
On those
he's
yeah. Visual Kei. It's very visual.
I used to listen to a lot of Wadi Moi as well, and Mana you had, and Blood is a very obscure band. And I know they used to have a different singer in the beginning as well. And then they had Fuki that was singing, and his voice is it's not like good singing voice, but it has that weird soul that I really like. And I don't know, it just takes me to this cold catacomb of just, I don't know, it's like you said, you listen to the music and it takes you to a place. But I don't find music nowadays does that. It's not taking me to like a magical place of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah. They're really good at creating these worlds too. I mean, like all these, oh gosh, I don't even remember all those actual technical terms, but like all these bands that are very much like Versailles or D, like all these bands are very visual. So if you've never heard of Visual Kei or J-Rock before, go check it out. But they are on stage, like you said, they are characters and they are extremely visual. It's very beautiful to look at, both in their like videos, and they're also like that in stage. And for example, Versailles, they have it's kind of like almost like an opera metal voice-ish. It's all men.
Asagi is literally an opera singer.
Asagi as well, yes. And they dress in these really like France, Versailles in what, the 1600 or something, with these outfits, like that kind of style. And then they are in that world and they create their own world. So I feel like Versailles is also a little bit like Kamijo. He's just doing a tour, I think, like a world tour again. I've never been a super fan of like Kamijo and Versailles, but I appreciate them. them. Kamijo is he's basically Lestat. Like his whole aesthetic, the Tom Cruise Lestat, like, the blonde, long hair, the tight, the whole outfit. I mean, just check him out, Kamijo. Versailles, and you will get an idea. You know, there's this kind of style. And Asagi from the band D, just the letter D. I had a good friend who loved D. It was one of her favorite bands. I've seen some of their shows, fantastic. And Asagi's voice is incredible, opera voice. They also have like
Absolutely.
this very gothic / vampire aesthetic, which is very beautiful. Beautiful dresses. Because here we have cross-dressing in the Visual Kei scene. We have a lot of males that are proud
It
males,
comes a
but
lot
they
from
look
kabuki, I think,
also
as
kabuki
well.
theater.
It's
Yes.
that kind of side. So it's not like it has a different
It's
meaning
a different, yeah.
to in Japan that it has like it's not the same as it is like here.
But it
I
is so
find.
fun to introduce Visual Kei bands to Western men because that are heterosexual because they get so confused. They're like, she's so pretty, and oh, she's so pretty, and wow. And then like, that's all men. And then they, so you can't really test people's men's kind of, limits with that. It's like, if you cannot
Yeah.
accept your own kind of homosexual side, then you can test it really well. Yeah, because they are, it's very visual and pretty. And I don't know. Like I've not been super into the vampire core. Like I like some of it, but I'm a bit of a different person. But there's so many bands that are just visually stunning or cool. I mean, there's some that are such as grotesque or like one of my favorite bands is one of the most known ones. So they're not really underground anymore. Deer and Grey are actually known overseas
love
now
them
because
too.
they have been they're one of the oldest Visual Kei bands now, and they are superstars at this point. Visual Kei has always been an underground movement, but they are so big as along with the Gazette, for example, also used to be one of my favorites. Back in now not anymore so much, but back then, and now they're both very very big. But it is an underground thing because they sing about things and talk about things that is very rebellious. In it is very much society critique, which is not seen as something good in Japan, where it's more like if you are the nail that sticks out, you have to be hammered in. There's individuality is not really traditionally a thing that was celebrated. So they're very much going against the grain in what they sing, what they do. Deer and Grey especially have been playing a lot with the grotesque thing a lot. They have in the beginning 10 years or so of their career, most of their music videos are brutal, horrifying, grotesque. It's things that can turn your stomach, with also quite heavy sounds and beautiful ballads. And so one of my favorite bands, amazing. Oh God, I can talk about this for like 10 hours straight.
I was thinking about it. I feel like we could probably talk about this forever.
Yeah, probably. You just make another episode only talking about Visual Kei and J-Rock. We can do that. But there's a lot of good stuff to check out if you're curious. Just so D with a D, or Versailles for the more opera metal stuff. Deer and Grey is a good one for the more a lot of people who like heavy metal. They have an easier way to get into the J-Rock through Deer and Grey. The Gazette is a thing, but there's also like so many like the smaller bands that are still very underground that are so good and underrated. But names. It's just like when I have to come up with names. One of the few bands that are relatively new, Zaza, but they're probably a bit difficult to find, but they are on Spotify, have really good stuff. Diaurra, Diaurr, have a good stuff. Dadaroma is quite heavy, amazing visuals and vocals. These are a bit more modern. Baktik is one of my favorites. Completely different. They're also Visual Kei.
Old school.
Yeah, very old school. They're also one of the oldest, and they're more floaty. So Visual Kei is not really a genre. It's more like it's the style. And then there's a lot of genres within it. So like a lot of it is rock, but there's also very pop stuff like LS9, for example, or Doubt. They're a bit more fun. Or, oh my God, Uncafe is a very known, also in the West known band. There was a very poppy, very fun, or a Sid Shido, also a bit more fun. Beautiful light vocals, male singer, one of my favorite bands as well. But yeah, so there's a lot of
There's
genres, and
so many
Baktik
like
is more
old
like
school ones that I don't
floaty.
even remember. Yeah.
Yeah. Kagero, Ichini, Zero Ichini, like 12012. They're like some of the old bands, or Hyde and Gakt, of course, are two of them.
Yeah, we can't. No, you just cannot forget
They
about
are
that.
the start.
I
They
was
started
thinking
a
about
lot.
him.
L'Arc-en-Ciel
Yeah.
was the band that Hyde was in. They're also a bit more
Yeah, I do love L'Arc-en-Ciel.
popish.
It's one of my
Yeah.
faves. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
but
also a bit more
yeah,
floaty and sad.
they're
There's
very
a lot of
dreamy.
like very dreamy. Baktik as well, very dreamy, beautiful vocals of Achi. Just listening to Baktik, some of the stuff, you go on a trip without needing anything else other than the music. It's a whole different world. So yeah, rabbit holes. These are the J-Rock Visual Kei rabbit holes. Please, guys, go and listen if you're
Nostalgic.
curious. Nostalgic. There's so much good. Miyavi is so good, but he's he's
Yes.
a bit more punkish, rock. He's an amazing dude. He's like, tattoos all over, mohawk, one guitar, nothing else, produces crazy sounds. He's like a pioneer of what you can do with just yourself and a guitar. Like he's slapping it and banging it. And now with social media, you've probably seen other people do that. But he was like one of the first people that I know of ever done that. And you just stand there like, how the fuck is he producing all these sounds? Miyavi, very, very, very cool guy. Yeah. So,
Goes all out.
Goes all out. He really, I've seen him on stage and he actually fainted on stage. And then they just pulled him back, gave him some pills, and he came back and was like,
slap, get out.
Jesus, we would not, we would like abort mission, but it's like, nope, we gotta get out of there. It's like, it's crazy. Yeah, they don't take good care of their health. Rentrer en soi, a lot of them have like French names, and they obviously, they pronounce it
French fascination because of the clothing
style
and the style.
The clothing, yes. And their band name is always crazy, but Rentrer en soi or Rientrer en soi, or how they pronounce it. Also one of the bit older bands, one of my favorites.
Despair on Ray as well.
Despair's
they're
Ray.
not like super. Yeah, they're not like super big.
No,
but
they're not.
I really love them. They're like one of my I really rate them. Really
That's
good.
Amazing vocals too, like really, really strong. But yeah, Rentrer en soi is also one of them that are actually, now that I'm older and wiser, I feel there's a lot of mysticism actually in his stuff. Like he's actually talking, or he's singing a lot about the actual tree of life. Like I feel he's into that stuff. And I didn't know this when I was listening to him a lot. But now that I know about the Kabbalah more, I can see his influence. And I don't know personally what it is, but from what he's singing about and the worlds that he's describing and how he is living the music with, it's very magical. It's very beautiful. That he does talk about Ein Sof Aur, actually, like, from the Tree of Life. So he actually has a whole album title, I think, and a song title called that. And I've never understood it because they often have really random names and titles. I was like, I don't know what it means, but now I know. So, the big light, the nothingness, the light with whatever. It's like the void.
Yeah.
So mysticist, really, really lovely stuff. So go check it out.
I feel like I always been the person that liked to buy albums. I don't have Spotify. Like I don't have Spotify, and I don't have any kind of musical. I used to have Spotify when it first came out. It was like a new thing, and I could not find any good music on there. And that was when Spotify came out. I was already listening to like J-Rock and Visual Kei, so I could not find this type of music. So like, it's amazing. You can find anything, and I couldn't find anything Japanese on there.
No, there was
so
nothing on there in the beginning.
Delete. So I just deleted it, and I never used it since. Not thinking that it's been like 20 years or so.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like maybe I should.
There's more on that now. Yeah, there's more now, but you don't find obviously don't find all the indie bands. You found a few, but it's like back then, also YouTube. It's like I had everything on YouTube, and then I also bought stuff or pirate thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I have like from the time when I was really into D, I have like a stack of CDs of my favorite CDs and some other bands as well that I could get hold of.
Yeah.
And I still have them here in London as well because I know my mum has like probably thousands of my CDs. But those ones I took with me
Yes.
because I just, I'm taking them with me. I'm not just
They're important.
chancing.
Yeah.
But I find this is something that I find really annoying with being into this kind of music. It gets very difficult to get the music. So I think this is why I kind of stopped listening to it because it's because it just got like too much. I think also because I was living in London, it just got so hectic. There were just certain things that had to go, and sadly, like I just didn't have time to like chase music, chase CDs, and chase all the bootlegs, and it's just it got too much, which is a shame because I think like if any kind of music could revive my interest in music or listening to more music, it would be listening to probably Japanese rock more.
Okay, I will get you.
I have a feeling
I'll catch you up with some recent albums that you might have missed. So just you get back in.
Yeah, I've missed a lot. I know I have, but also I remember that there are a few bands I also found that I like the old stuff, but the new stuff because as bands become more and more popular, they sign up with bigger record labels, so they have to adhere to certain trends and certain types of music. And sometimes I was like, I didn't like certain albums because they were newer and they had to kind of, you could tell that they had to kind of accommodate the crowd more than.
Yeah, it was a bit with some of the bands.
Yeah. But, it is what it is. There must be some small underground band still available somewhere. Please.
Yes, I shall send you some stuff. Live happening
perfect.
now. We're reanimating Amelie live on air. Awesome. Wow. This was this has been a great session.
A long episode, but worthwhile.
Yeah, long episode. Worthwhile for us, anyways. That was really nice and quite passionate when we talk about the music. So, yeah. Cool. Thank you, Amelie. Thanks, guys,
Thank you,
for
Lynn.
checking in. Yeah, you're welcome. As always, if you like this, just give us the thumbs up and subscribe, comment below. And if you generally like what you're doing and want to support us in any way, we do have a buy us a coffee account. So if you like, you can buy us a coffee or two. Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye.
You've been listening to AmeLynn's Corner of Chaos. See you in the next rabbit hole.